Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 205 of the Social Art Podcast, which is a little podcast I do about the art and things, and this is one about the art. So the little co-host, little Dennis, is with us, and we're going to be looking at an article from an art book called Art Fundamentals, Theory and Practice by 3D Total Publishing, and I'll put a link and everything in the description and the show notes for this book, because I actually did a quick look of it where I went through it, just having a look for the first time. But on this one, well, this episode here is going to be the first in a series of podcasts looking at basically the art fundamentals. So this one, what we're going to do on this one is start right at the start and ask ourselves, why learn the art fundamentals? What are the art fundamentals? And my experience of realistic pencil drawings and art fundamentals. And I've put in my notes, or lack of, because it's quite interesting how a lot of the art fundamentals you don't learn just from drawing realistic pencil drawings. So I'm going to talk all about that as well. But the main takeaway really from this is this book is I found it very motivating and inspiring. So I really hope you enjoy this one. Little Dennis is going to get us straight into it. Boing! Hit that quite hard. Watch this. Little kiss for Kitty. And they're going to sit here and, well, let's get into this. I hope you enjoy this. So we're going into the book now. Art Fundamentals, Theory and Practice. How to critique and improve your art for better results. So this is basically the first chapter really, Fundamentals by Devin Corwin. And the thing here, what it says, before you start any tutorial projects, let's begin with an overview of the essentials. In this chapter, art teacher and pro-concept artist Devin Corwin provides a guided tour of the must-known fundamentals of art. And we asked the question, why learn the fundamentals? So what I do in these articles is, I basically study from this article, take notes, and then talk about it. And this one I've put into 3 main chapters, which is why learn the fundamentals, what are they, and my experiences with them so far. But future episodes are going to be covering light, colour, composition, perspective, anatomy and narrative. So there's a little sneaky peek of what the fundamentals are. And for this one, the main takeaways I got from the article was very inspiring and common sense distilled information so far. So far, they've managed to sort of distill a lot of information into really not much text, but you get a lot of information. I found it very motivating, and I've realised it's all about the mind, overcoming fears. A lot of this is about overcoming fears of the mind and stuff. And then I've also put plan and play, which again is that thing about balancing these opposites of like playing, but also making sure you're sort of improving. And I put the main takeaway, learning the fundamentals will let you play more and better. See, this is brilliant. So the main thing really, why learn the fundamentals? Because it's going to let you, learning the fundamentals will let you play more and better. So in other words, once you've got a grip of these fundamentals, you can spend more time playing because you don't need to be worrying about learning the skills. But one of the things in here, it says you're never going to stop learning these fundamentals, which I love that as well. So I'll put a link in the show notes about the Click Look unboxing. But what I thought I would do for this is I'll start with why learn the fundamentals, and I'm actually going to just read the entire lot. I'm going to read all the text. Like I said, there's not many images in this one. All we've got one image which shows it's like a building, some sort of I would say spiritual building really, with 4 angels, like golden statued angels, and a few people in the front, and then you've also got some shadows and stuff. So what they did was they took one image and they showed how a lot of the fundamentals are in that one image. But I'll be honest with you, it's not a very attractive image. I found it a little bit of a boring image, but I suppose it serves its function of like explaining things. So I'll just read this whole thing and then I'll go through my notes. So this is what the article says. It says, what exactly are the fundamentals of painting and drawing? Students often hear the mantra, practice the fundamentals, repeated over without further explanation, conjuring up images of, I love that word, conjuring. It's like a witch's pot, like a little cauldron. Conjuring up images of late night study sessions, poring over an intimidating pile of perspective and anatomy textbooks to learn arcane knowledge. See what they've done there? Conjuring with the word arcane, like spells. I never noticed that before. So, here, look, and it continues, it says, the truth is thankfully a lot simpler and quite a bit more fun. We like fun. Painting is a visual language and the fundamentals are the mechanics of that language. The words we choose to use, the grammar and syntax we employ. Anyone can learn a language with enough immersion and practice, and rapid progression can be made especially when you have a really strong motivation to communicate. What I like here is, look, it says, we learn, Look, you learn the fundamentals, we can choose we learn the mechanics of the words we choose to use, the grammar and the syntax. Because just before they were talking about conjuring up an arcane. It continues, it says, the main reason that studying the fundamentals can be a grueling and discouraging experience is the false notion that they need to be learned before you can start expressing your own ideas. This is putting the cart before the horse. For example, if you study perspective and anatomy books before trying to make a painting using these tools, it is like reading the dictionary in order to learn a foreign language, and nobody would expect it to have much success with that approach. This reminds me of something from SVS Learn. What they said in SVS Learn was, it's not the same, but it's a bit sort of the same. They said about, you've got like a plumber and you've got an artist. For some reason, people seem to think that they can ask an artist to do them a drawing for free. But they said you would never get somebody asking a plumber if they could come and fix their plumbing for free. It's the same sort of thing here. They were saying, like you're saying, you wouldn't expect to learn a language by reading the dictionary. It's the same sort of thing, but a bit different. It continues, it says, there is no such thing as advanced painting and drawing fundamentals. The basics are as advanced as you can get. The more experience I get as an artist, the more power I see in returning to the essentials of the language, and the more excited I get at the possibilities of what they allow me to achieve and communicate. I love this, because what it means is you're never going to stop learning. I find that really sort of motivating, that the fact that this person here, who is obviously an advanced artist, is still learning the fundamentals. And I find it sort of, it gives me confidence, I suppose, hearing that. It also said here, this is the final bit, it says, learning workflows and processes. Processes. Learning workflows and processes can of course be useful, but these are the answers to another artist's questions that they most likely have asked over decades of solving problems. I love that, because it's like you've got to basically experience it for yourself. So this is that thing, there's this balance between practicing drawing to pick up the skills, but you've also got to practice the skills before you start drawing. But like what you said, you're doing them both at the same time. And my problem, which I'll talk about in a minute, is when I started wanting to draw from my imagination, I basically realised that I needed to go right back and learn a lot of skills, and I just felt a bit overwhelmed like that. I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute though. But like what he's basically saying is, you're going to learn by doing, but you also do have to learn. like you have to study, but also practice. And for me, the practicing is the playing bit. The studying is a little bit more work, but there are ways to make studying actually like playing. So, but this is like doing drawing exercises and things. But the final bit here, it says, when you learn the fundamentals and not a process, it gives you the freedom and excitement of the unknown. Any idea that you happen to have in the future, any interest you happen to come upon in your journey as an artist, you will have the tools to express it. As you gain more ideas and experiment with how to express them, you will add more tools to your artistic toolbox. I like that. What this reminded me of here was from the Draftsman podcast with Stan Prokopenko and Marshall Vandruff, because what they said was, wait a minute, what was it I was talking about here? Yeah, what they said was, because somebody had asked them a question about it, they was wondering if they were too old to start being an artist, and I think it was Marshall said, you can never be too old, and in a strange way, you'll have more better things than the newbie. Well, not the newbie, the young one, because the older one has got life experiences. So there's this thing here where you've got your life experiences, so you've got all these ideas that you want to get out, but you haven't got the skills to get them ideas out. Whereas you could have a younger artist, younger as in age, who has got not as many life experiences, so they've got all the skills, but they've got no sort of experiences to express. So that's where you need like a balance of the skills with something to express, like experiences. Again, like what I often find out with these articles is, art is really about balancing opposites. In fact, I say life is that. Life is about balancing opposites, and for me, art is this beautiful way of experiencing the truth of life. That's why I love art, because for me it's a very spiritual thing. So in my notes, what did I put here? Look? Well, the first thing, learn all at once. Yeah, because before I even got into it, my main why I learned the fundamentals, my takeaway my first thought was, how can you learn them all at once? It's overwhelming. Because that's the thing, perspective. You got to learn perspective. Shapes. You got to learn the shapes. Lighting. You got to learn lighting. You got to learn all these different things, and it just feels a bit overwhelming. So what it is what I'm realising is you've just got to be okay with you've got to accept your skills at the moment, and as long as you're sort of studying, you're going to get better. A lot of it is like faith, having faith. So what I put here, can learn anything. Yeah, that little quote that they said, painting is a visual language and the fundamentals are the mechanics of that language. They said that, somewhere they said, look, anyone can learn a new language with enough immersion and practice. The thing is, you can learn anything. All you need is repetition and practice, which goes back to Lee Hammond. And this actually reminds me of something. It was yesterday. I went to work and they've got these little... When I go into work, I have to sign on, clock in and out. And there's a 6-digit number that you need to put input to log into this little system. And somebody had been telling me it for a couple of weeks, but I don't really need it because I can go over somewhere else and do it. But basically, what happened was, he said to me, look, you can learn this 6-digit number. All you've got to do is keep repeating it in your head. So what's happened is, in the space of 2 hours, I just kept repeating the numbers in my head, and it was actually 069971. And that's it. In 2 hours I remembered it, and I didn't just do it that way. What I did was I created a little story about the numbers. So this might be a bit confusing, but what I did was the number sequence starts with number 0. So all I've got to do is remember 0, and I remember that because 0 is basically the foundation of everything. Everything starts with 0, like a blank canvas. And then it goes, and then all I've got to do is remember, you start with 0, blank canvas, you've got to go negative, which is the number 6, positive, which is the number 9, and you need 2 lots of positive to counter out the negative. So you've got a 0, 6, 9, 9. You've got 2 numbers left. You know that the last one is 1, because the whole point of life is you got to get yourself into balance to become 1. So that's the last number. And then the way I remembered it was you got to take 1 number off of the first number, which was 6. So you got your 7. So what I realised there was a good way of studying and learning is to actually firstly repeat the thing, but also sort of turn it into symbols, I suppose, or like a story. Create a little story and you can remember something. All you need to do is remember the first bit, which is the number 0, and everything else will follow. It's like some sort of association. You're sort of learning an association. I thought it was cool. And the other thing is you can learn anything. That was one of the main things I learned when I started drawing. I started to realise that you're not born with skills of drawing. You can learn anything. So how amazing is that? In my notes I've also put the cart before the horse equals overwhelm. So this was my problem. And then in my notes I've put play equals accept your mistakes. Play and an awareness equals a secret. In other words, playing is like sketching. So if you're just sketching, that's cool, but you're going to get better. But if you're sketching and you're sort of aware of what you should be practicing, like for instance you might want to be practicing how light affects a sphere or something, what you can do is you could spend your time drawing spheres. I've drawn probably thousands of spheres with lighting, and that's how I learnt lighting, the rules of lighting. Whereas if I'd just been drawing anything, I wouldn't have learnt the skills of the light. So I thought to myself, you need to be playing, and the reason you want to be playing is because it's fun. If what you're doing is fun, you're going to keep doing it. But then if you bring in this awareness, you're going to be having fun and getting better, that's the secret for me. I'll put here, look, this is full of simple common sense and inspiration. Yeah, this bit, if the rest of the book is like this, I'm excited, because it's basically common sense. None of this was sort of complicated, but already in this bit there's lots of information here. But it's just common sense. And I drew this little image I've got of the word fundamentals in a circle with an arrow, like as if it's going in a circle, going to another word which says artist is growing. And that is going back. You've got another arrow going back. So they're sort of like fundamentals is going into the artist growing, and the artist growing is going back into fundamentals. In other words, the artist is learning the fundamentals and growing, and so they just keep learning the fundamentals like that, growing. Never stop learning the fundamentals. I've then circled the word fun, and I've put it's the balance again of playing and learning, but you can make it so learning is play and play is learning. In other words, the secret is to enjoy learning. That's what I'm thinking. There's so many... I should do a separate podcast about that, how I make learning fun. And then we put, learn the fundamentals, not a process. For me, that was magic. In other words, you could watch, say, a YouTube video of somebody like learning the process of how they go about, say, doing a composition. But if you haven't learned the rules of composition, yeah, you might get really amazing at doing a certain composition based off of this video you've watched, but if you don't know the rules, you can't then play around with that composition to make it better or make it different but still pleasing to the eye. So I thought for me that was like one of the main things I thought was brilliant. Learn the fundamentals, not a process. And then I've put, what I put in my notes, I said, like, don't learn a style, learn how to see and draw, then styles come. In other words, what this reminded me of was when I first started drawing, my goal was to create my own characters, and I ended up somehow going off into this realistic route. But what happened was, I had all these manga books, and it's like this bit here, learn the fundamentals, not a process, to me, it's like learning how to draw a human before you learn how to draw a manga character. In other words, if you learn how to draw a manga character, you might be amazing at drawing a manga character, but if in, say, 10 years' time you want to start drawing, I don't know, superheroes or something, because you haven't learned how the rules of a human, like the anatomy, you're going to have to go back and learn that. Whereas if you learn how to draw a human, you can then branch off and draw some manga characters, but you can also go off and do like realistic characters as well. Yeah, and then I've put here, it's like you learn realistic first, then you do your imagination. So for the longest time, I went through a few months, and I feel like I'm still sort of suffering from it, where I spent probably a year or 2 years learning realistic pencil drawings, and then when I started trying to learn how to draw from my imagination, it felt like I'd gone right back to the beginning. But I realised now this was actually the best way to do it. Because if I'd gone straight to me, basically what's happened is, through that experience of realistic drawing, I learned how to see. This actually is a nice segue to the next bit, which is my experience of realistic pencil drawing and the fundamentals, and I've put or lack of them. But the more I thought about this, the more I realised that there are actually quite a lot of fundamentals in realistic pencil drawing. So this is more drawing realistically from a photograph. So I'll just go through my notes. So what I've put was, I said I started out wanting to create characters, and I ended up drawing realistically. I then got bored of drawing realistically, for me it wasn't creative enough. Like I sort of got to a point where I could draw a photograph, and it could look like a photograph, but I realised that there's not much creativity going into that. And then as soon as I started trying to sort of be a bit more creative, I couldn't do it. And so it was like you could play it safe by just keep drawing realistic pencil drawings, but I don't want to do that. I want to be more creative. So for the longest time I thought I'd wasted my time, because it felt like I've got to go all the way back now, learn all these fundamentals, and I thought, well, I've spent 2 years here learning realistic drawing, and what's the point? So what happened then was I felt overwhelmed, as all the stuff I needed to learn to draw from my imagination and create characters, I felt like I didn't have any of it. And I've put in my notes, I've still not really overcome that. There's still a bit of me that, what happens is, if you get competent at drawing something, and then you have to suddenly go and draw something else, and you're not very good at it, there's a part of you that sort of, for me at least, there's a part of me that's, how would I say this? I'm sort of scared to go back to being rubbish. Whereas it's much easier to just keep doing the realistic, which is quite good. You see? Now this is where I start to realise it's about the mind. I need a drink. This is good, look. This is where I realise it's a lot of this is mental. So what happened to me was, I got a frog in my throat. Do you like it when that happens? Oh, I've lost what I was going to say there. I was going to say something. Well, I've lost it. But what we put, still not overcome that. Oh yeah, this is a mental thing. So what happened for me was, I got so far into these realistic pencil drawings, I then wanted to start doing my own characters, and I realised that there was a part of my mind basically sabotaging me, and a lot of it was to do with fear. So this is when I started to realise I've got to actually step back and work on my mind. So whereas you've got, within the art space, you've got to learn the skills and practice them, so you've got to balance the learning with the practicing, you've also now got this other thing, very much like fractal. You've now got this thing where you've got the art bit, you've also got your mind bit. So you've got to basically work on your mind Because if you've got somebody who's confident but can't draw amazing, they're going to get a lot further than somebody who's got no confidence but can draw quite well. That's what I'm thinking. So that it's like this balancing of the mind with your art skills, and then the art skills is a balance of studying and practicing. So it's quite cool. But for me, the mind thing is a lot of it is about like meditating and writing about what you're feeling and stuff. So it's a long process, this. And I've also put here realistic portrait drawing, not from photographs. So my thought was realistic portrait drawing from photographs is not really covering the fundamentals. Oh, have we talked about what the fundamentals are? Yeah, the fundamentals are light, colour, composition, perspective, anatomy and narrative. What this did for me was it reminded me of something one of my art teachers said. I went to this art class and this art teacher, she said, Mr. Bev up, Mr. M-R, Bev, B-E-V, up, U-P. She said, remember, when you're doing composition, which is one of the art fundamentals, remember Mr. Bev up. So what it is it's movement, rhythm, relationship, balance, emphasis, variety, unity and properties and proportions. So you've got the movement. When you're doing a composition, you want to have like the movement and also the movement of the viewer's eyes. And that's like the rhythm and the relationship between things. So like the composition, you've got little bits and big bits. You've got to basically compose these relationships with everything. You've then got balance, so you don't want to have too many big things and not enough little things. So it's about getting balance. And then your emphasis, this is how you can guide the eyes around. So like if you put something here which is high contrast, you can actually move, that's like you emphasising things. So this is how you can actually guide the viewer through your artwork by emphasising things. It's again, this is like a sort of a brain thing, it's like some sort of what would you call that? It's like almost like magic. You're sort of what's that word? You're sort of it's not hypnotising. You're sort of tricking. It's not tricking. It's that thing that Dan Brown does, where psychological it is. Then you've got variety. So you might have you might have circles and squares. So you don't want to just have loads of circles. You've got unity. What does brings to mind for unity? Well, this is bringing it all together. Yes, you want to focus on each little thing, but also bring the whole thing together, which is the composition and proportions. What I like about proportions is, for me, all of these first ones were very sort of feeling things, like movement, like variety of shapes and relationship. It's all very feeling, whereas the proportions is the skill bit. The proportions is where you need to know the skills. So again, you've got, even inside of composition, you've got this balance going on between feeling your way through it and also like knowing rules. It's cool, isn't it? And I've put love this book. So if we go back to my thing here, when I said drawing realistic pencil drawings from portraits, realistic portrait drawings from photographs, I felt like it's not really covering the fundamentals. So I thought like it's not really covering composition, it's not really covering perspective, anatomy, narrative or colour. And but then when I thought about it, there is a little bit of composition involved. So when you're choosing a photograph to use as your reference, what I was doing was I was cropping them. So that is like composition. You're cropping it for shapes and balance. So I started to realise there is actually an element of composition involved in selecting your reference images. So I like that. Perspective, I've put, what's this here? I can't read that. Oh yeah. So realistic pencil drawings with life drawing. So drawing realistically does actually have perspective in it with like life drawing. Because when I was going to life drawing, you've actually got the 3D model there, so you are dealing with perspectives. Now, anatomy, yeah, but not really, because I never learned any anatomy at life drawing class. I was just more learning how to see, which is a different skill. Narrative, for me, there was no narrative involved in drawing realistic drawings from photographs, because you're just drawing what you see. And colour, I worked 99% in graphite pencils, as I didn't want to be overwhelmed with colours while learning to see. I think I've only done probably 5 hours total of realistic coloured pencil drawings, maybe a little bit more, but not much. And the part of it was, I was thinking, if I start trying to learn how to do colour whilst I'm still trying to learn how to like see and draw what I'm seeing, I felt like I'd get overwhelmed. So I actually put it down into like that. But I don't know. What do you think the best way to do this is? Like, for me, I like to focus on one thing at a time. But I'm not sure you can actually do that when like this is the thing. I'm not sure you can actually do that. I feel like you've got, or maybe what you've got to do is learn each thing at a time. But, like what you said here, keep going back to it. So in other words, learn light until you get quite good at it. Then go and learn colour until you get quite good at it. And then what'll happen is, by the time you've got to the end, you'll go back to light and you'll be able to bring in parts of these other things with it. So it might be that like composition will affect the lighting and stuff like that. Well, the narrative and composition I feel like would be linked. Anatomy and perspective would definitely be linked. Colour and light are linked as well. All of these are linked though. So it's this thing of like, for me, the best way I learn is to chunk things up. So I'm still trying to learn how to learn everything. Sort of, it's for me, again, I still feel quite overwhelmed by all of this. And then when you start bringing in like learning digital as well, and that's another thing, you can't really learn digital until you've learned fundamentals, because learning digital is a completely different skill set. So again, it gets a bit crazy. That's the main thing I noticed. But I've put here, look, realistic, the fundamental skills that I felt like I learnt from realistic pencil drawing is light and tone. I feel like I've learnt quite a lot of skills about light and how light works. But the thing with that is, if I tried to create a character with my own lighting, I find that quite hard. So I guess I didn't really learn fundamentals of light. I learnt more how light behaves, but what I struggle with is sort of manipulating it. I guess again, it's the mind says that it's wrong, whereas sometimes it's not wrong. But the main skill that I felt like I learnt realistic pencil drawing is how to see. And that goes into Bert Dodgson's book, Keys to Drawing. The main thing was, the whole time you're learning how to see. And I would say, me personally, I feel like that is actually the number one priority. I feel like the key is learning how to see. And then once you've learned how to see, start learning these things. So I almost feel like learning how to see as an artist sort of supersedes this. I feel like that's the actual base level fundamental. Look, I've put fundamental equals learning how to see. Bert Dodgson's Key to Drawing. And I've put a base fundamental, all others on top of it. So I created this little drawing where I've put like level 1. Yeah, for me, I've put fundamentals are fractal. And this is what I was trying to get at earlier. It's like, the first thing you want to learn is how to see. Doesn't matter whether you're any good at what you're doing is good. You've just got to learn how to see. And then once you've done that, then perspective, anatomy, colour, and for me, what happened then was I started learning lighting. So level 1 is learning how to see. Level 2 is like, say, lighting. Level 2 is all the fundamentals. So one of them is colour, but then colour it can actually be branched off into sub things. So you got to learn how to see. You've then got colour that you can learn. Once you've sort of got a bit of that understanding, you've then got oil paints and digital. Because like using oils is completely different to watercolour. But you need to have you need to understand colour before you can really start doing that. And now this is going to sound a bit sort of contradictory, I suppose. But the other thing is, you can actually dive straight into oils and learn how to do it just by doing it. See? So in a strange way, it sort of doesn't matter, but I think it goes back to that thing of if you want to just do oil paintings, but like this, you've actually still got to learn some of these things. And I guess what I'm realising is everyone's completely different. So some people will just like to dive straight in and do it that way, whereas other people would actually like go through it sort of more structured. And I feel like for me, going through it more structured is what creates some of the overwhelm. And there's a part of me that's scared. There's a part of me that's scared to just jump in and try something, because again, I know that it's going to create rubbish work. So I've still got to get over that hurdle, which is a mind thing of accepting bad drawings. One way I found that was good at doing that was actually art challenges. Because if you commit to an art challenge, what I did was I did a 30-day painting challenge, and every day for 30 days I had to create a painting. By the end of that, well, one of them was me little robin. I created a little robin painting, and what happens is you get to a point where you don't care. If you do a painting and it's rubbish, you get to a point where you don't care. But I go in and out of that. Sometimes I don't care, which is beautiful. Sometimes I actually do, and that's when I struggle, which is a mind thing. I've put, AKA, you can't learn oils till you learn colour. You can't learn colour till you learn how to see. And then I've put the word can't, like question mark, no. This is it. I love this bit. I had this epiphany thing, because what I just said there about you can jump straight into oils and you can learn it that way. Well, what he said in this article was he said about rapid, he said something about rapid progression. Yeah. Oh, I can't find it. Where's this bit? Basically what he's saying is, oh, I can't find it. Well, he was basically saying you can, oh, I need to find that. Here, look, where is it? It's quite important, I think, that I get that bit. Oh, I can't find it. Hey! Anyone can learn a language with enough immersion and practice, and rapid progress can be made, especially when you have a really strong motivation to communicate. In other words, what I got from that was, anyone can learn anything. So you can jump straight into oils and learn it that way, but for me, rapid progress would be made by following the order whilst playing. In other words, it'd be nice to do an experiment, get two people, identical twins or something, and have one of them jump straight into oils and spend a year, or you could do this with anyone, two artists who have never done anything. What you do is you get one of them, you lock them in a room for a year, they do nothing but play around with oils, and that's all they're doing. They're not allowed to study nothing. You got another one who's got loads of books on the fundamentals, but geared towards oil. So like learning how to see and learning colour theory and learning how to use and manipulate oils. I wonder who would come out of that the better artist. Do you think it'd be the one that's spent a year just playing and having fun, or the one that's actually spent a year studying hard and structured? I'm not sure. It'd be quite interesting, but my thought is you're going to get further by taking it slow and going through the sort of the process here. That's what I'm thinking. But for me, what's happened with me is I've actually ended up not doing some of the things I want to do because I'm still at the beginning. Which again, it reminds me of something Stan Prokopenko said. So I got this course at proco.com about figure drawing, all about drawing a figure, and it's got various, I would almost call that fundamentals. He broke it down into like fundamentals of how to do figure drawing. One of them was gesture, another one was like the robo bean, like the torso, turning it into shapes, and then it adds more structure. What happened for me was I spent all my time in the gesture, so I feel like I got quite good at capturing the essence of things, but I never went into the structure bit. And that's because I got scared, because when I started trying to do the structure, I found it too hard. So my problem is I don't push myself out of my comfort zones. But then I feel like this is another thing, I love doing gestures. So I sort of stayed in that area because I was having fun. But then you wonder, are you only having fun because you got quite good at it? So if you got quite good at doing structure, would you have more fun with it? It's mad, it is. Yeah, but what I put here, what I said was, I said, you can't learn oils till you learn the colour. You can't learn colour till you learn how to see. But then I thought, actually, you would still learn, but you would just be less effective. Maybe. I need to do an experiment on that. And I've put here, when I started drawing from my imagination, I felt intimidated because my skills got reset back to 0. So I've put safer to keep drawing realistic where skills were levelled up. But the problem was I got bored, so I wasn't having as much fun. So you've got to basically push yourself out of your comfort zone and be okay with you've got to basically get to a point where you can accept 0 skills. And for me, that's all about sketching. So I do still do a lot of sketching, and I'm probably not going to show you a lot of my sketchbooks because they're rubbish, but they're getting better, which is cool. So for me, I love sketching, because the thing with sketching is you can just go for it. Cool. But the main thing I'm really learning at the minute in my sketchbook is I'm trying to learn characters. So I'm sort of trying to learn, and what I also been doing is I've got my little character, Peter the Penguin. I sort of tried to move him into different poses, because that's something I struggle with, is trying to turn things, which that goes back to like perspective. So again, what I've got to do really is sit down and just learn how shapes move in perspective. But I have more fun drawing characters in perspective. So there's lots of things here I've got to work out how to do things. So like play, accepting 0 skills, with an awareness of what to practice and look out for. And then I've put at the bottom, I've put the word mind in a circle, and I've said, this is a mind thing, not a skills thing. So this is where I'm at. At the moment, I'm more stuck with mental things. I feel like most of my progress at the minute is blocked by mental things, which are lies. There's like a part of my mind that is scared to fail, I suppose. So it's actually stopping me from doing things I know I need to be doing. I've got to stop talking about it and do it. And I put here, you can learn/draw anything, but the mind will trick you. This sort of goes into that thing I said about earlier. You've got somebody who's amazing at drawing, but if their mind is sabotaging them, they're not going to be producing, well, they might be producing nice work and stuff, but the mind would sabotage them in certain ways. Like it might stop them. One of the early ones for me was art class. One of the biggest fears for me was going to art class. As soon as I overcome that fear, I learnt so much from that. So again, art will set you so free. And the reason it does that is because it forces you to face fears. If you want to get better as an artist, you've got to face fears. which is easier said than done. So this is why I feel like for me it's a balance between practicing skill, like practicing drawing things, and also doing me spiritual practices, which is me mind. And sometimes I spend 90% on the mind. I would say the last few years I've been way more into the mind than the art stuff, because for me the mind just felt a lot more important. What's happening now is I'm starting to get more sort of 50-50, where I'm starting to realise now, I think my mind, I've worked on quite a lot of things. So it's now something inside of me is saying, right, you need to start bringing more, you can sort of go back to your art skills now. But again, I think it's cool. And that's it for this one, for this article. So my main experience from realistic pencil drawings and fundamentals was it definitely doesn't cover a lot of them, but it covers a lot more than I thought. Like composition, this is cool as well. You can learn some of these fundamentals without actually doing any drawing. Like composition, you can learn that by editing photos and stuff. So that's cool. And then what is it? That's it really. Why learn the fundamentals? Learning the fundamentals will let you play more and better. It will let you play more and play better. I don't think there's anything better than that, is there? The secret here though is to find a way to make studying fun. And I feel like Jake Parker at SVS Learn has a really good way of doing this, which is breaking it down into little things. So for instance, one of the courses at SVS Learn is about how to ink. And what he does is he breaks it down, so you learn how to hold the pencil and draw lines, like different things of lines. Basically, for me, it's about drawing exercises. Finding drawing exercises that are fun. Like for me, gesture drawing. I love doing gesture drawings. It's one of my favourites. And I could sit there all day drawing spheres with different lightings on them. I find that really fun. Somebody else might find that boring. So they might have more fun. It might be as simple as, say, somebody else enjoys drawing cubes with lighting or something. So this is what I like about this is, it said it in here, everyone is different. So you basically, everyone's different, but there are, there are basically certain things you've got to learn. It's interesting though, I think it's cool. And then all that was left in this article was, in the photo that they had a bit where it was light, and it said, sunlight is used to create graphic shapes with the values exposed by the light while the shadows are kept flat. Oh cool. Narrative. The narrative is kept open and mysterious with contrast of colour used in the costumes to differentiate the figures and suggest a larger story. Interesting. Composition. See, this is the thing. See, I don't really know much about this, but apparently with composition there's different shapes and stuff. The one I know is the golden rule, the golden ratio, and that thing where you have like a grid, and certain points on the grid are where you want to place interesting things. But the beautiful thing about this is, again, nature does the best compositions naturally. So again, like if you learn how to see, you can basically copy nature. You're learning composition without realising it. But in this photo they said composition, a triangular composition is used with the figures arranged in the lower part of the image balanced by the top statues near the top. So I never noticed that. This is another one of those things where it's a subconscious thing. You don't realise what's happening, but something's going on here. And then the last one was colour. It said the white light from the sun allows the colour vibrancy in the clothing, grass and flowers, as well as a strong differential of materials. Blue light from the sky and warm bounce light from the ground, fill in the shadows. Interesting. So that's this one. What I'm going to be doing is, I'm going to aim for every other week, I'm going to cover each one of these. So the first one we look at will be light. And it says, the key fundamental that makes all our subjects visible, describing form and volume with illumination and shadows. So what I'll do is, I'll do an episode just about this fundamental, and then the next one will be about colour, then composition, perspective, anatomy and narrative. So for colour, they said, the wavelengths of light that are visible to the human eye, granting different surface properties to the objects we see. Composition, the relationships between every element we choose to show on the canvas, with rules of thumb that can inform our decisions. So again, this is that thing where you learn the rules, but you still make up your own things. So just because you got the rule doesn't mean you need to follow it to a T, but you need to know the rules so you can sort of play around with it. It's that thing of like what I said about with the manga. You can, if you learn how to draw a manga character, but you haven't learned how to draw a human, you can't then. Well, you're not going to be as good as drawing other types of characters because you need to learn the rules. But then once you've learned the rules, you can basically create like some sort of alien. But the alien will be based on the rules, which means it's going to be a more believable looking alien. So it's brilliant, it is. Perspective. The illusion of three-dimensional depth on a two-dimensional canvas using horizon lines and vanishing points for guidance. What this reminds me of is I watched a video yesterday from Anthony Peake. He was talking about, basically he's talking about like the reality being an illusion and stuff. And one of the things he said was, we're actually inside of a 2D world. It's our mind is creating the illusion of a 3D world. What that did was it reminded me of this exercise I did with Betty Edwards in her book Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. What you had was she got you having this piece of glass or plastic which you could see through, and you get a marker and you would basically draw. You would put it in front of yourself. You'd look through it at say a landscape, and you would draw. So say you had like five buildings. You would turn them buildings into one shape. Basically what you were doing was flattening the world into 2D. Now this is what's amazing. As I was going through that book, this was back in 2014, what that did was it made me start to question this actual reality. It was almost as if art was showing me that this world we're seeing, this reality, is not what we think it is. It's the mind. Once again, the mind is creating what we're seeing. But if your mind creates something different, you see something different. And again, it's that thing of like you could look at a picture, for instance, and you won't see something. Whereas if you know what to be looking for, you're going to see it. A bit like that thing where have you seen that video where there's like a monkey in the background, you don't see it, and then once you realise it's there, you always see it. So this is why I feel like the basic thing to be learning is how to see, because it means when you start doing these other things, you've already got a more skills at actually looking. And then we've got anatomy. For me, that's the scariest one. That's the one that scares me the most. I think for me, light was fun. Light is a fun thing to learn. Colour, I got a feeling that would be fun. And I did do a probably a week or so learning colour theory, basically. But because I didn't practice it enough, I've sort of forgotten a lot of that. Composition, I love doing composition. I love composing things on thumbnails and whatnot. So I think that's a fun one. Perspective, the more I got into that, the more I've had fun with it. But I still find that a bit scary. But then, again, the more I've been practising that, the more I've realised it's not as hard as you think it is. Which, again, I think it's the mind. But the thing with anatomy is, that scares me, that one. Because I feel like you've got to learn the bones. You've got to learn how they move in perspective. So this is where they link up. You've got like foreshortenings and stuff. But again, I feel like there's this part of it is going to be learning how to see. Because if you can see, you can draw it. The thing is, if you learn how to see, you can draw it. If you learn how the structure works, you can actually start manipulating it. But that one scares me, that does, anatomy. I feel like that's, for me, I can't wait to get into that bit to see what they say. But anatomy to me feels more like an advanced skill, really. And narrative, I feel like that's a more of a feeling thing. So what they've done here is they've said anatomy, the study of the forms, landmarks and gestures of the figure in order to achieve compelling and dynamic characters. It's cool, that is. And the final one, narrative, the purpose that all the fundamentals serve, the story or subtext that will draw the audience into the scenes we create. And that goes right back to what I said about realistic pencil drawings. They're amazing, but they because they're lacking narrative, they sort of lack feeling. So that's just my thinking. I thought that's it really. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait for this. And I think the main thing is it's got me really motivated, and it's making me feel like I need to stop being scared of doing things and actually do them. Yay! Little Dennis has said it's game over, sunshine. He likes doing that. Like I said, I really do hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll put links and everything in the description and the show notes at sophielawson.com, and you can find the video at youtube.com/sophielawson. I hope you enjoyed this, and well, the future ones are going to be brilliant as well. I can't wait to go into each of these art fundamentals and talk about them. So all that's left is this week's little inspirational quote, and it actually goes to, it's a quote from this article. And the thing with this article is there's so many quotes in this that I could have used, which is what I love so much about it. It feels to me as if this book has been put together and they've managed to sort of condense loads of information into little bite-sized chunks of beauty. So I could have picked so many quotes, but the one I went with is one that I think is brilliant. So this week's little inspirational quote is, painting is a visual language and the fundamentals are the mechanics of that language, which is brilliant. I just think that's cool, because it's basically saying the fundamentals is how you speak. So like when you're painting and drawing, you're sort of speaking with visuals, so you've got to learn how to speak. I thought that was cool. So this week's little inspirational quote, painting is a visual language and the fundamentals are the mechanics of that language.